He hid the great sword under his cloak and drove his little horse back to the tournament with lightning speed. "Arthur, where have you been?" Sir Kay shouted. "You?" He caught himself as Arthur dropped to one knee and opened the cloak. "Your sword, my lord," Arthur said, smiling. But his smile quickly disappeared when he saw Sir Kay's reaction. Frozen in place, his face white as milk, Sir Kay stared at the sword. Finally, he spoke. "Where did you get this?" he asked Arthur, although he knew the answer. Arthur confessed that he had searched in vain for Sir Kay's sword and had borrowed this one instead. "Get father at once, and tell no one of this," said Sir Kay sternly. Arthur thought he must be in terrible trouble. Surely, he could return the sword without his father knowing. Why did father have to be told? Nevertheless, he obeyed his brother and returned with Sir Hector. Sir Kay closed the curtains of the tent and opened the cloak, showed the sword to his father. Sir Hector gasped when he saw it. "How can this be?" "Father, I am in possession of this sword," said Sir Kay nervously. "That is what matters. Therefore, I must be king of all Britain." "But how came you by it, son?" asked Sir Hector. "Well, sir, I needed a sword, and we couldn't find mine, so I decided to use this one," said Sir Kay. Beads of sweat formed on his brow. "Very well. You drew it out of the stone. I want to see you put it back." "Let's go," said Sir Hector. "But I have the sword," said Sir Kay. "Isn't that enough?" "No," replied Sir Hector, as he mounted his horse and headed toward the cathedral. Arthur rode behind and, ever so slowly, Sir Kay mounted and followed. The churchyard was still deserted when the three arrived. "Put the sword back in the stone," said Sir Hector. "I must see it, father, I." "Just do it, Kay, and you shall be king. If that's what you want." Sweat was now pouring off him. He raised the mighty sword over his head and plunged it downward. But the sharp point skidded across the surface of the stone, causing Sir Kay to fall headfirst. "Now, son, tell me. How came you by this sword?" asked Sir Hector again. "Arthur brought it to me," said Sir Kay. "He lost my other one." Suddenly a fear gripped Sir Hector's heart. "Arthur, my boy," he said quietly, "will you try it for us?" "Certainly, father," said Arthur, "but do we have to tell anyone about this?" "Son, please," said Sir Hector solemnly. "If you can put the sword in that stone, please do now." The lad took the sword from Sir Kay's hand and went slowly to the stone. Raising it with both hands over his head, he thrust it downward, through the stone, burying the point deep within the stone. Effortlessly he pulled it out again, glanced at his stunned father, and shoved the sword into the stone, even deeper this time. Sir Hector shrieked and sank to his knees. His mouth moved, but no words came out. He put his hands together as in prayer. Silently, Sir Kay knelt and did the same. "Father!" "What are you doing?" cried Arthur, leaping down from the stone. "Please! Get up! Get up! I don't understand." "Now I know," said Sir Hector, choking back tears. "Now I know who you are." "I'm your son, father," said the bewildered lad, crouching down by his father and putting his head to Sir Hector's chest. After a few deep breaths, Sir Hector regained his composure. He smiled sadly down at Arthur and stroked his head. Look there behind you, my son. He pointed to the gold lettering on the stone, which stated the purpose of the sword and the stone. Arthur sat in silence and stared at the words on the stone. Although you were adopted, I've loved you like my own child, Arthur, said Sir Hector softly. But now I realize you have the blood of kings in you. You are now our king and we are your faithful servants. At this, Arthur broke into tears. I don't want to be king. Not if it means losing my father, he sobbed. You have a great future before you, Arthur. There's no use avoiding it, said Sir Hector. Arthur wiped his eyes with his sleeve. He straightened up so he could look Sir Hector in the eyes. A few minutes passed. Very well, Arthur finally said slowly. Whatever my future may be, I am willing to accept it. But I still need you with me. Then so it shall be, my son. So it shall be, said Sir Hector. They sat quietly for a time, comforting each other. Then from across the yard a figure appeared and knelt down beside them. Merlin, said Sir Hector, bowing his head to the famous enchanter. I've been waiting for you, Arthur, said the wizard. You know me, my lord? Asked Arthur.